there, mathematicians! It's Justin again. Welcome to my final volunteer spot at the festival, the Cotton Candy Booth. I volunteered to help calculate the total profit for the day. We earned some income, but also had a few expenses, so I'll need to take those into account to find our total profit. We started with $52.35 in expenses for supplies, including ingredients. The booth had some sweet sales though, including 87 cotton candy bags at $2.50 each. The booth rental fee was $1.25 per hour, and we rented the booth for 10 hours. Can you help me find the total profit? If we write a math expression that includes all of our income and expenses, then we can evaluate it to find our total profit. Remember, money earned is positive and money spent is negative. You've got this. Pause the video to write an expression to represent our total profit. Check your work as we go along. If we combine our income and expenses, we can find the profit. We spent $52.35 on supplies. Should this expense be positive or negative? Right, negative. Expenses take money away from our profit. So we'll start with negative $52.35. Next, we sold 87 cotton candy bags at $2.50 each. What operation can we use to find our total sales? Yep, multiplication. We'll multiply 87 by $2.50 to find the total. I grouped this in parentheses to keep the sales together. We can add this because it's money earned. Finally, we had a rental fee, which takes away from our profit. The total fee can be represented by finding negative $1.25 times 10 hours. The term is already negative, so add the expense in the expression. You might have written your expression a bit differently than me, and that's totally okay. Here's a few other equivalent expressions that represent our situation. Now we can find our profit by evaluating the expression. The dollar sign shows the units. Let's remove those so we can focus on the decimal operations in the expression. We'll apply the units again at the end. What strategy do you think we should use to evaluate this expression? Right, we should just follow the order of operations, just like when evaluating expressions with integers. What operation should we do first here? Well, there are two groupings in this expression, so we need to start by simplifying each grouping from left to right. We multiply 87 times 2 and 50 hundredths. Remember, when multiplying decimals, we can shift the decimal points in the factors to work with whole numbers. So shift the decimal in 2 and 50 hundredths 2 digits to the right. Now, multiply 87 by 250. Shift the place value back by moving the decimal in the answer 2 digits to the left. The product is 217 and 50 hundredths, which we'll substitute into the expression. We still have one more grouping. Pause the video here to multiply this grouping on your own. Then use what you know about the order of operations and decimal operations to finish evaluating this expression. How did you do? First, multiplying negative 1 and 25 hundredths by 10 gives us negative 12 and 50 hundredths. What's next? Look for exponents, which we don't have. We also don't have any multiplication or division, so we're left with addition. We'll work from left to right. Add negative 52 and 35 hundredths plus 217 and 50 hundredths. Since the signs are different, we need to subtract the smaller amount from the larger amount to determine how many more positives there are. Remember to keep the place values aligned by lining up the decimals. This gives us 165 and 1500ths. Should this be positive or negative? Yep, positive, since we had more positives than negatives. Next, add 165 and 1500ths plus negative 12 and 5000ths. Again, since the signs are different, subtract the values, giving us 152 and 6500ths. This is positive because we had more positives than negatives. Our original expression had dollars for the units, so we'll include the units in our answer. Our profit is positive $152.65. Nice! Thanks for helping me calculate the profit. I've got a few more problems for you to try, though. Evaluate this expression by combining what we know about fraction operations and the order of operations. What operation should we do first in this expression? Right, look for groupings. There are parentheses around the negative 2/3, but there's nothing to simplify inside them, so they're not actually grouping anything together. We can move on to look for exponents, which we don't have, so we'll start with division. How do we divide negative 2/3 by 4/5? Yep, multiply by the reciprocal. Keep the negative 2/3 the same, change the division sign to multiplication, and flip the second fraction to its reciprocal, 5/4. Now, multiply. We ignore the signs and multiply the numerators. 2 times 5 is 10. Then multiply the denominators. 3 times 4 is 12. The fractions had different signs, so we'll write negative 10/12 as the product. Since this isn't the final answer, you don't need to simplify the fraction yet, but you can if you want to because simplifying creates an equivalent fraction. I'm going to leave the fraction as is because we're subtracting next and we're going to need a common denominator. You know how to take it from here. Pause to finish evaluating the expression on your own. What strategy should we use for subtracting fractions? Yes, rewrite the subtraction as addition. Keep the first fraction the same and add the opposite, making this negative 3/4 plus 10/12. To add, we'll find a common denominator. Negative 3/4 is equivalent to negative 9/12. These fractions have different signs, so find the difference between the positive and negative groups by subtracting 10/12 minus 9/12, which is 1/12. Do we need to simplify this? No, 1/12 is already in simplest form. Finally, should 1/12 be positive or negative? Yep, our answer is positive 1/12 since we had more positives. Nice work. Now that we've practiced evaluating multi-step expressions with rational numbers, try a few on your own. Pause to evaluate these expressions. Let's look at example 1 first. There aren't groupings or exponents, but there is division, so divide negative 7 and 2/10 by 6/10. Remember to ignore the signs and slide the decimal in the divisor and dividend, making this 72 divided by 6, which is 12. Then, since a negative divided by a positive is negative, we'll substitute negative 12 into the expression. Now we're left with negative 4 and 2/10 plus negative 12. The sum is negative 16 and 2/10. Nice job. Now for the second expression. Are there groupings? Yes, 2/5 plus 1/10 is in parentheses, so we start there. We need a common denominator. 2/5 is equivalent to 4/10. That's better. 4/10 plus 1/10 is 5/10. Since this isn't the final answer, we don't need to simplify, but we're multiplying next and we don't need common denominators, so we can make this easier for ourselves later by simplifying 5/10 to 1/2 in this step. Before multiplying, change 1 3/7 to an improper fraction, making the expression -10/7 times 1/2. Finally, we'll ignore the signs and multiply to get -10/14 after applying the sign. Simplify this to -5/7, and we have our final answer. Fantastic job today applying what you've learned about rational numbers and the order of operations to evaluate multi-step expressions. And thanks for helping me find the cotton candy booth's profit. Be sure to finish the guided notes and complete practice levels 1 through 3. Until next time, keep questioning, keep calculating, and remember, using what you've learned helps you solve new problems. See you next time.
Hey, hey.